Okay, some components that we're going to need to do this. When you put in packaged bees, it's the only time when you keep bees you do not use smoke at all. No smoke when we install packaged bees. And the reason is that the smoke confuses the bees and will make it hard for them to put any homing pheromone odors that would mask that. So that's why only time we don't use a smoker is putting in packaged bees. So what we're going to need today are some beekeeping gloves. All my stuff is used here, so it's going to look used. These are goat skin gloves and nylon sleeves on it. These work great. A lot of really good dexterity. Probably not as good a protection as cowhide, but for the ease of use, they're top notch. And of course, we have our bees. This is a bee jacket, we call it, and it comes with a great veil. This one is brand new. It's very clean. Normally, they're very mungy. This has good elastic around the waist, so the bees don't get up underneath the jacket and nail you. Okay, then we also are going to need a hive tool for prying things out. Possibly the can could get stuck in there with wax, so we'd use a hive tool to help get that out. But whenever you keep bees, you always have a hive tool, no matter what. So then just a rundown on the equipment. The equipment we're going to need to do this. So we have here we have a this is a hive stand. This keeps the hive up off the ground a little bit so the wood doesn't rot. And this particular hive stand is made out of plastic lumber. I like this. It has a nice little finishing piece here, and that's a nice little landing board for the bees. Okay, so on top of the hive stand goes the bottom board. And you can see the bottom board now. It gives them a little extended landing platform so the bees can climb in. So these are very nice. And the plastic lumber is nice because it will not rot. I'm sure this will last many decades without any problem. And this is our entrance reducer here. So we have two different entrances. We're going to start out with our small one. And as the colony grows, after about a month, it will go to the bigger opening here. But for now, we're going to do it this way. And when we put our bees in our packaged bees, we want to stick grass in the entrance because we don't want the bees to get out right away. We hold them in the hive overnight, and then we'll come out the next day and pull the grass out. If you don't put grass in the entrance and the queen gets released and the bees aren't used to where they live at all, they can abscond. They'll just leave. So it's very imperative that you close up that entrance to hold the bees in there. And that's when we put our bees in. We'd like to put our bees in more like after 6 o'clock at night if we can, because then we're getting closer to darkness. And if they could get this plug out, by the time they got it out, it would be dark, and then bees don't fly in the dark, and they won't abscond, and usually they'll be just fine to pull it out the next day, and they'll be used to their hive. So that goes like this in the hive. Okay, and then we're going to have a deep box. This is our deep brood box, 9 5/8 tall. That's what this is. And I have 10 frames in here. I got all new equipment for the frames. So this is, I like using the black foundation. This is Right Cell Foundation. It is a Man Lake product. The frames are Man Lake. And I like this because they got a nice deep depression in here. So when we put it in, we're going to squirt some sugar water on here to help. It'll hold some sugar water so when it helps the bees get going right away. Okay, the other thing then, so we'll have that one deep box. We'll put our bees in, and then we're going to put an inner cover on this. This is our inner cover. It has a oblong hole right there on the top, and that is for putting in a bee escape when we go to harvest honey at a later date. But we're just doing for what we need today when we put the bees in. And so we're going to have to feed our bees because There's no nectar available in Minnesota in April, so we have to feed our bees. And you're going to have, when you start with new foundation, we're going to need to feed our bees from the time we put the bees in, which is mid-April here. Probably going to have to feed them all the way into early June, or whenever they're done drawing out 2 boxes of frames and drawing out all the comb. At that point, we can stop feeding them. But we continually have to give them feed. If we don't feed, just because we see flowers out there, if you stop feeding, the bees will stop. They won't collect enough nectar because they don't have a big enough population yet. And then they won't be able to draw that wax, and your population will suffer because of that. So here we have a feeder pail. I like using feeder pails. This is a 1-gallon feeder pail, and this it's probably difficult to see with the camera, but I have little holes drilled in here, about 30 holes, and the droplets of syrup just hang there, and the bees can collect them. And now this does have a nice recessed lid, so when we snap this on tight, we want to fill this up, almost full. If you only fill it halfway full, it's going to leak out because it has to create a vacuum. So always keep it very full when you turn it over, and then it'll get a vacuum, and then that will work the whole time there's syrup in there. So we put the syrup on there, and after our bees in, all we're going to do, the hive has to be reasonably level. Now, if your hive isn't reasonably level, you may need to shim this pail, but it has to be. If the hive isn't level, it can also leak out. But other than that, then this just gets turned over upside down and gets covered with covers up that inner cover hole. Now, I like the feeder pails. I like them a lot because the bees will cluster at the warmest part of the hive, which is the top part of the hive. And that is right where that feeder pail is. Now, in the upper Midwest, we cannot, I stress that, we cannot use entrance feeders with a little glass jar, because if it's cold out when we're putting them in the 30s or the 40s, the bees are up there and they're in a cluster. They will not be able to go down and get that syrup, and those bees will starve to death because they can't get to that feed. So for packages in the spring in the upper Midwest, a feeder pail works the very best. They also have other feeders that you could use, like a hive top feeder, and I discourage using hive top feeder in the cold upper Midwest. Hive top feeders work great. They're the best feeder of all in August, September. But in April, a pail feeder is your best choice, and the odds of success are much better. So after our feeder's on there, then we just put an empty box to cover the feeder. And that helps keep the feeder warm. And our inner cover is already on already, so all we need is our metal cover, our telescoping cover. Now that's basically how our hive is going to be set up for when we put the bees in. I just wanted to run by all the components so a person can see it when we actually put the bees in. Okay, we're gonna put this package of bees in. This is just an empty cage. I was just going to demonstrate how to use a plastic cage. Now, a wooden cage, you would remove this feeder can like this, and then you would, spray the bees with sugar water, and then you dump them out is what you would do. But this type of a plastic cage has this big lip right here, and it would make it very difficult to pour the bees out this hole. It would be, you wouldn't ever get them without a lot of shaking. So for us to do this, in this case, either end of this cage opens up. So we're going to dump the bees out the end. I just want to do a little quick rundown what this was. Now, normally from this supplier, Oliveira's honeybees, they'd come with California mini cage. It's a dead queen here that didn't make it, but they'd come in this California mini cage in here. They'd have a tab with some piece of metal. This one was broken off, but it would hang. It would hang right in the cage right here, and the tab would be hanging up here, and then the bees would feed her through the cage. Now this one we're going to do actually has a different type of a cage, a plastic cage called a Jay-Z Beezy cage, and I'm sorry I don't have one for demonstrate, but we'll see it when we pour the bees out. And then when we do that, we're going to use we're going to put the queen in. We'll use this queen cage holder here, and this holds various cages. Now this is a California mini cage, it's called. It does have, when it comes here, this is all one piece, but it has little slots. You can cut these, and here I have cut these. It makes the putting in the cage easier because the plastic gives a little bit, and then this would just hang on the frame when they release the queen. Now the Jay-Z Beezy cage will go in this other slot here. Now the other type, there's another type of a queen cage. It's called a this is called a 3-hole cage, and it's done. You can see that it's got 3 holes in it, 1, 2, 3, and you would load it from this side, and then there'd be candy on this side, and obviously there'd be a screen over it. So I just didn't have that type, but I wanted to show you what this would look like. So normally this one they'd have attendants in here. Now a California mini cage is too small to put a bunch of attendants in there to take care of her, but with the candy would take up probably a good quarter of this would be full of candy, and they'd have the queen and probably 7 or 8 attendants in there, and then there'd obviously be a screen on top. But that cage can get put in here also, and I like putting the screen, putting them screen down, you know, in case you're feeding it, and the queen won't get drowned in there. So now here's another one. You could just put that, hang that on the frame. So I just wanted to give a demonstration of that. So our queen would be hanging in there. So when we're going to do this, this is the feeder can that comes with. It does have some syrup in it still. There are 3 tiny holes in there, and that's what the bees feed on the trip to Stillwater, Minnesota from California for the 2-day trip in a semi-truck. So this is down like that. And this particular one was a carniolan. We marked the can so we know the race of the queen. So when we're going to do this, you just end up bonking the bees down. If it's warm out, you spray them with syrup. If it's cool out, you don't spray them with syrup. So we bonk the bees down. That causes the cluster to fall. Then we can pull out our can, and then we would reach in here and work this queen cage out, the metal tab, make sure she's alive, and we'd put her in our pocket to keep her warm. Now, okay, once we got that, now we're going to dump the bees into the hive. This type of a cage, it has these little plastic tabs. You can see that the plastic door is over this tab, and here again the tab of the door is over this tab. So we need to pry with our hive tool this plastic over this and over that, and once we do that, the door will open. So we want to, but normally we would prep that before we even get to this point of pulling out the cage. We would prep that, and if we listen, you hear that, and you listen, you hear a click. There. Now the door is ready to go. That door is ready to pop open. So now we would pull that feeder can out, bonk the bees down, pull the feeder can out, and then we would go over the hive, we'll see, and the door was going to go open straight up like this, and we just hold it over we'd pull out some frames of the hive, obviously, and shake the bees into the hive. And that's what we're going to demonstrate that, but I just wanted to give you a heads up so we know what to look for when we do this. Okay, we're coming up on the bee place. He's got signs up, and I guess we can. I think he is a big BSer, and he's got the bee sign out. So this must be the place. Pretty organized. It's got a sign there. The bee pickup. Just gonna follow the signs. So the beef store on this, he does sell feeder pails and syrup. He's got pallets of syrup and pollen patties, and I guess that's about it. Is all he's selling. Oh, and queen holders. So he's got a crew of guys here that help him do it. It's cold out. He's got the bees in the garage there, and we'll go check it out before we get our bees in the back. So this is how the bees are shipped here. They're in three-pound packages of bees. They're in a plastic cage is how they come, a recyclable cage. And different races of bees. The S is Saskatraz. The C, the queen, is a Carniolan. And the I, the queen in this one, is an Italian. So you can see the bees are hanging in a cluster there. This is a feeder can. It's full of syrup for the trip from California. If they did not have this, or if the feeder can ran dry for too long, the bees could possibly starve. The queen is, there's a wooden cage that hangs on this metal tab, and she's hanging below this. And the bees are clustering around here, her keeping her warm and feeding her. She is in a cage by herself, and the bees can feed her through the cage. So we're going to get our bees and load them up and get out of here. Hey, I'm all loaded up, and I'm going to take them home and put them in my warmer garage. Okay, we got our packaged bees home now, and I'm not going to put them in today. I might not put them in for 2 days. We can check the feeder cans to make sure they have food in them. They aren't empty. I'll probably will feed them later tonight with the spray bottle to make sure all the bees are getting syrup. And I'll spray them again tomorrow morning and tomorrow evening. So we want all to make sure they're all getting sufficient amount of food. And then we'll probably put them in we'll put them in 2 days. So to check to see if you have enough food in the feeder cans, just got to get it up near your ear and slosh them around. You'll hear the fluid echo in the can, just if you listen here. I can hear that, and both cans are sloshing, so I know they both have sufficient food for right now, and the bees are in no danger of starving. So, and now in the shop here, it's 63 degrees in here. So it's perfect. We don't want to have it really much hotter. Anywhere between 55 to 60 degrees is a perfect temperature for bees, packaged bees in cages, because it really, it's better to have it cooler than hotter. And the hotter it is, you eat more syrup when it's hotter than when it's cooler. So we'll check it out tomorrow. Okay, I'm just going to feed these bees. I have a sprayer. I just made up some 1-to-1 sugar water in the sprayer here, and I was just going to feed the packaged bees. I'm going to put them in tomorrow. So all you do is just spray the screen on the bees, and they will get that syrup, and they will lick it up with their tongues. Don't drown them, just get it wet. I've already done the inside ones. The bees can meander around in here a little bit, so if it happens to get on the bottom, they can, I'll put a little bit on top, but they can get in there and get to that syrup. So that's all you have to do. Now that should hold them overnight easy. There is still some syrup in the can. I slosh it around, but I just want to make sure everybody's getting enough to eat. And we'll feed them again tomorrow morning, and we'll probably put the bees out tomorrow afternoon. Okay, I'm going to put a 3-pound package of bees in today. This is a Saskatraz queen, and it's in a JZ BZ cage, which normally they don't come in JZ BZ cages, but this was a mark queen, and they just put them in those type of cages to keep it all straight. You can see this hive here where we have put grass in the entrance because we have to hold the bees in overnight so they don't abscond. If the queen gets out, they could abscond. And we waited now, it's about 6 o'clock at night, so we don't have sun shining on the side of the hive here, and because if it's warm there, the bees will gravitate to that side and they won't be on the feed because we have new foundation here. So help to prevent that, I'm going to take my spray bottle with 1-to-1 sugar water and just squirt it, and these impressions of the honeycomb stick out a bit and they'll hold that syrup. So we want the bees to stay in the center, and I'll push these to the center after the bees are dumped in. So I'll put in that frame and this frame also, 2 frames. And that will be where all the food is, so that hopefully the bees should stay in the center and be under the feed. Okay, so we start this, we have to prep the door because this can's going to come out, the queen's going to be hanging right here, but the bees cannot be poured out of this hole because there's a big lip there and they can't come out very good. So we need to dump them out the end. Either end is a door. So what we need to do is to prep the door. We want to get this piece of plastic over this little tab. Same thing, this little plastic over that tab. So we stick our hive tool and we'll hear a click usually. That's ready to open. Same thing on the bottom. Hear the click. Okay, that's ready to open. So now what we're going to do, first we're going to spray the bees through the cage. We want to just kind of get their wings wet so they aren't trying to minimize their flying a little bit. And they're in a cluster right now, right around the queen. So we got to knock down that cluster to be able to get her out. So we're going to bonk them down. Now they're down. We're going to take out the can. Cages are nice. You can get access to the can. The old wooden cages, you had to really pry them out with your hive tool. So there's the feeder can. Here is the queen is right here. There's the queen. We'll make sure she's alive. And she is alive. She's growing around in there. And I'm going to spray the bees a little bit. Now we're going to dump the bees in. So I'm just going to open the door. Shake the cage. One good bonk. 2 of them. There we go. Now give them a little more spray. Just make sure they don't fly all over the place. Now if it was cold out, we wouldn't want to do that. It's too cold to, if it's in the 40s, we don't want to spray the bees at all. We just dump them in. And then we spread the bees out around here with the, get them across all over the bottom board now so that when we put the frames in, we don't squish them. So then we just push our frames together. Got our pollen right here. Put some frames back in. I like the black foundation. I think it's easier to see the eggs. When we come back and do our first inspection to look for eggs in the hive, they really the white eggs really stand out really nice against the black backdrop. And then I have a queen cage holder that I use. It's a simpler way to hold that cage, the queen cage. And my partner has put a marshmallow in here. This is candy right here. Pull that cap off, exposes the candy. Or we pull that cap out and we put a piece of a marshmallow in here because this queen has been with this hive for 4 days, more than 4 days, probably almost 6 now. And they'll accept her easily, really easily. So I want a quicker release than a 4-day release with the candy. But this is the only time you can use a marshmallow is when you are doing a package when the queen has been there for 4 days. Whenever you're requeening any other colony, it has to be with candy and it has to be a slow release. So we're going to put this cage in here. And that is sufficient. That's not going anywhere. I'll roll that down. That's all out of our way. And now we're just going to hang this right off that frame. And we don't want to put her directly underneath the feeder pail in case the feeder pail leaks. We don't want to drown her. Put all of our frames back in. You have our pollen. It has to be access to the bees. You don't want to put it way in the corner. They're going to be in the center right here. So we're going to put this in the center so they have good access to it. Now we're going to grab our inner cover. Put that on top. Now the hive has to be reasonably level, otherwise this pail could leak out. I did level this out here today, so it should be good to go. This is just a gravity pail with holes drilled in it. I just turn it upside down and it gets a vacuum, and the bees, the nice thing about this pail, it's got a recessed lid and the bees can get up underneath here all the way around. And so, 40 bees can feed at the same time and they can bring that syrup down. So it works really good. You do not, in the upper Midwest, you do not want to use an entrance feeder, the kind with a jar at the entrance. If it gets cold and you're using one of those type of feeders, the bees cluster up at the top and they keep everything nice and warm up high. They can't go down and get that food out of that feeder and your bees will be dead. They'll starve to death if we have temperatures in the 40s. So this type of feeder is the best feeder for spring feeding. And this empty box is just for cover the pail, and we just put our cover on top. And that's all it is. So thanks for watching, and we're going to come back and check on these in a week to make sure the queen is laying. And we're going to continue our whole series that's going to go on throughout the whole year of all the management of these 2 packages that we put in today. I hope you come with me on the journey. Thanks for watching. Okay, we're back next day after installing that package. We're going to pull the grass out of the entrance. We're going to check the feeder pail, make sure that hasn't not run out. And then we're going to lift the feeder pail up and look underneath it. And we want to see a full mass of bees underneath the feeder pail. If for some reason you don't see very many bees under the feeder pail, that usually means that the bees have moved off to the side over here, one side or the other, and you have to go in, light a smoker, take the feeder pail off, smoke the entrance, take off your inner cover, and if you see them that the whole mass is on one side or the other, you have to take the frames out from the other side and just slide all the frames back to the center underneath the feeder pail, and then you take those other frames and put them back over here. If you do that, just got to do that once and everything will be perfect. So now I'm going to just take this grass out, and the bees haven't been out. They're going to come out because it's warm out, and they're going to come out in full force probably like that. Now also I'm going to take off my cover here. And if we look at our feeder pail there, you can see it's opaque, so you can see very easy that it is okay. So I would call that they are right in the middle where we need to be. So I'll just move these bees around. Try not to squish too many. I'll even put it off to the side here, and then they can There, I put it off to the side. Now they could go back in when I close this. Close it up. So I'll have to say that our package bee installation was successful. And the bees, they get to fly. They haven't flown for over a week because they were cooped up in their cage. And now starting off on a new adventure for them. I also have another package that I did yesterday. We're going to do the same thing here real quick. Oh, see, they pushed out their grass. They can do that. So we held them in overnight. So they did push their grass out. And then in here, we're going to just make sure that we can see underneath there. Oh yeah, the mass of bees under there. So that's perfect. That's just what we want to see. Perfect. Just get anything that's left here. But they appear to be able to go in and out without any problems. Grass is growing already. Okay, well, the packages are off to a great start, and we're going to come back and check next week for queen acceptance. So we'll open up the hive, and we're going to look to see eggs to make sure the queen is laying. So stay tuned for the next video. Thanks for watching.